Okay, so I'm doing a no buy February, and this is for several reasons. I'm not doing it to kind of test myself. I'm doing it because I'm on a really strict budget. And if you followed me from last year, you know that I was saving as much money as possible to move to the US. And now that I'm here, I've spent a lot of money on that moving process, on buying things for our house, all secondhand as much as possible. So we did still save a lot of money. We've got to that point where I have exhausted most of my savings to set ourselves up here, and I still have expenses and things like that to pay for. So this month we're doing a no buy February, mainly because I need to budget and I need to really get serious about my budget and understand my incoming and outgoing and all that stuff. But I also think it's a really good time to do it because the US definitely is much more consumerist than the UK. I'm not saying the UK is not consumerist at all, but there are just so many more things available here. And especially because I'm getting into a lot of different activities like climbing, marathon training. Luckily, I have a lot of stuff already, but this is going to be a really good test to see if I can just use what I already have, create a structured budget, and really stick to it. I also asked you on Instagram if you had any questions about this challenge, and there were quite a few, so I'm going to answer those throughout the whole video as well. But we're going to talk about how I'm going to structure my budget, what is a necessity and what's not, what I'm going to spend money on and what I'm not, and then also talk about the things that, you know, ideally I'd like to buy, but I'm not going to buy because, well, we're on a no buy February. Okay, because I want this vlog to be a bit more interesting rather than me just like sitting down and telling you about my budget. I'm going to take you through my day and talk to you about the things that I have budgeted for and how I am making those kind of budget moves within my daily routine. Most notably, we make our coffee at home. I think we only had one coffee out last month, but for the rest of the time we have been buying nice coffee beans, so we want to make it at home, and then making our coffee at home. Now, I know this might seem like a really small thing, but everything adds up, especially if you are making sure that you're doing things that you actually enjoy, but then also the things stack up that cost small things every day. But then I'll tell you the kind of savings hack that I've been doing as well, but I need to have a shower. One of the things we actually do is hang up our clothes. We do have a dryer, but we try to hang up the things that are a bit more delicate so that they'll actually last a lot longer. And then obviously hanging things up saves a bit of money, saves a bit of electricity, but more so it's kind of about the longevity of our clothes, because the better you take care of your clothes, the longer they're going to last and the less likely it is you're going to need to replace them as soon. And this is something I find actually to be more helpful when it comes to not only sustainability but also my budget. Okay, I need to have a shower now, so I will see you afterwards. Okay, I'm having another coffee because it's a 2 coffee kind of day. When I go to the grocery store, I try to pick things that are mostly in season for their sustainability aspect, but then also because it's actually cheaper. So I'm roasting a delicata squash and some tofu, and I also do some shopping around. So I've been going to Sprouts to get my tofu because it's like $1 cheaper per block than at places like Safeway or Whole Foods. So just doing like little things like that, just shopping around and finding some of the better deals can really make an impact on your grocery bill. While I have my coffee, I'm just gonna write down some of the things that are, I guess, I wouldn't say they're rules, I'd say they're just guidelines that I'm trying to adhere to during this no buy. And I thought I'd also talk to you about some things that I've actually cut out of my budget or reduced in my budget just to make, you know, my money go a bit further. So I'm gonna write these down while I have my coffee and then we shall talk about them. Okay, so let's talk about the things that I've actually cut from my budget. So I'm not buying anything for my hobbies. There are things like, you know, I go hiking and climbing and skiing and running and all of those things I, you know, I have all the basic things that I need, and there's nothing that I need even for safety reasons. You know, winter hiking, you need spikes, and I personally like to use poles and different layers. I have all of those things already, so I really don't need to be buying new ones or anything else. Those would just be because I want them. So I'm putting that on the, you know, no list. Also things like things I've been doing for a while is not eating out or getting takeaways. And I personally don't think of this as much of a big deal. There are loads of restaurants in Denver, obviously, but I personally haven't found any that are like ones that I absolutely love that I want to be going back to all the time. I also find that they're hugely expensive, and takeaways even more so because you have lots of different fees and things that you have to pay. This is just a personal preference. If that's something you want to keep in your budget, if you are creating one, then, you know, go ahead. I personally am trying to use this as a good time to just learn how to cook more things and eat a bit more healthily, so that when I am doing my like marathon training, for example, I'm really getting the most benefits and feeling as well fueled for those workouts as possible. The same as for alcohol. I did dry January, and I also find that I wake up in the morning and I don't really want to go for my marathon run, or I just feel a bit like sluggish, so I'm not spending money on alcohol at all this month either. Again, no books, I cancelled my audio subscription. I told this to you, I think, in my last video, and that has definitely saved me a lot of money already. I think it's saved me about $60 already just from being able to go to the library. Maybe even more actually, because I've rented 4 books from the library and I've listened to 1 audiobook from the library too. So that's definitely, you know, at least $60 saved. I think I mentioned this earlier, but we're not having any coffees out. I think we've had 1 coffee out maybe in the last month, because instead we decided to buy really nice beans and support a local roastery, and then just try to make sure that we are using that coffee at home and just not spending on the sort of extra things that you end up spending when you go and get a coffee out. There's something I already paid for that I'm going to on Monday, which is actually like a coffee cupping session. It's like an hour long. It's at Sweet Bloom Roastery in Lakewood, and I'm actually going with a new friend, Lauren. Really excited to do that. That's something I've already paid for, so. But also I'm not going to write off things, like just in case things crop up, because obviously I want to make new friends, and if things pop up like, you know, $10 for this cupping session, then I think I'm going to prioritize doing those things. I also actually cancelled my gym membership, and I went and bought a cheaper one. The one I was going to a CrossFit gym, but I wasn't going to the classes. I was a bit intimidated because it's quite intense. I ended up just going to open gym, so it felt like it was a bit of a waste of money, and because I was getting into climbing, so I decided to join my climbing gym instead, which is more than half the price, and you can do bouldering and top roping. It has a full gym and it has yoga classes, and I think it's about $80 a month for all 3 of those things. So that was definitely a really good way to save money. One of the biggest things I was also hoping was that starting compost would help with the kind of price of getting our garden started over the next couple of years. Obviously, it's not going to be ready by this spring, this summer, but we're really hoping that, you know, we'll see how long it takes, but it'd be nice to save some money that way too. So we actually have a mix of stuff in here. We have stuff that comes out of the Lomi, then we also have some, you know, cardboard, and then food waste as well. So this is still an experiment for me. I've never done proper outdoor compost before that isn't just like garden waste, because my parents tried to do it at our old house, but they got rats, so they couldn't do that. So this is the first time like properly exploring it, and I tried to give it a shake up to try and mix things around a bit, but yeah, I'm really excited to see how that goes. Some people said about worms, but I don't know if it's too cold here to do worms, but also you need soil, and all of these beds have been properly landscaped by the people who own this house, and I don't think that I can just put something on top for worms. So yeah. The weather is pretty unbelievable today, so I'm just sitting outside and I'm gonna write some kind of like intentions for this month, like why am I doing this, you know, what's the goal at the end, do I want to be saving money? Do I want to be spending money? One of the things I do actually, or I'm starting to implement, is putting £10 into a savings account every day. It seems really small, but over time it's just like that habit of saving, and it's good for me to build up my emergency fund again, because obviously I've spent a lot of money on things for the house. Yes, so I'm going to set up, so I'm going to write my intentions for this month, and then we'll talk about the exceptions, because although to be fair, it's actually only really going to be one exception, and that's really just going to be just in case someone that I meet wants to do something. But again, it's not going to be buying new things, it will only be on activities. Another thing I've also been thinking about is what I can make at home from scratch that's cheaper, and thinking about groceries that I can buy that are also going to be a cheaper option, because there are lots of things at the store, like apples are very expensive, probably because they're not in season right now, and you know, potatoes are much more affordable, even though I don't think that they're in season right now, although I still need to learn about Colorado seasons because it's obviously very different from what I'm used to. Things like bread I find to be quite expensive, so I try to make that at home. I can make about 6 loaves of bread out of, or maybe 5, out of, you know, just a normal sized bag of flour. So that's, you know, almost $1 a bag. Obviously you have to take into account if you add anything in, salt, rosemary and yeast. Yeast I'm finding is quite affordable, but you have to buy it in packets. I'm still trying to find a bigger version. I'm definitely going to try sourdough again this year, because obviously then you have your own yeast and then you don't have to keep buying it. But sourdough is something I'm finding a little bit tricky, so yeah, I have to adapt all of my baking to living at a different altitude, and so that takes a bit of experimentation. The other day as well, I really wanted to go and get some bagels from like Einstein Bagels, because their bagels are vegan, and I really wanted some, but I think the last time we went, we spent like $25 on 13. I already had some flour, so I decided to make some. I ended up making mini ones by accident, but it just sort of showed me that actually, because I've made them so many times now, it didn't take as long as I thought it was going to be, so it wasn't as laborious as it is when you first try to make something when you're experimenting. I was really pleased with how they turned out. They were in my last video, I think, or This Is How I Eat to Feel Happy and Content. They were in that video, so go and check that out if you want to see that. People also asked about treats, like how you treat yourself during like a no buy month, and to be honest, that's so personal, because it really depends on what you consider a treat. For me, a treat is being able to have the time to go outside for a beautiful hike when it's really sunny. So it's not really about, oh, I really want to treat myself to like a new fleecy jumper or whatever, because believe me, I could do that. I could do that probably every other week, and I would love it. You know, I have a bunch of fleeces. I have the things that I need, and honestly, just being in a place like this makes me a lot more grateful for the free things we have around. Also, when it comes to edible treats, for example, I try to actually make those at home. We pick a really fun recipe like white chocolate and raspberry cookies, and I don't take into consideration the fact that raspberries aren't in season, all of that kind of stuff. As long as they're vegan and they make quite a lot, that's all that really matters. So that's actually a treat that we made maybe in December when we really wanted something that was sweet. We still have some white chocolate chips, still got all-purpose flour, still have most of the ingredients to make that if we wanted to be honest. We'd just have to buy some vegan butter and some raspberries. But again, treats look very different for different people. I don't have that much of a sweet tooth, so those kind of treats aren't really that much of a big thing. Treats were a much bigger thing for me last year when I was living at my parents' house and I was spending a lot of time alone. I really had a lot of times when I just needed something to make me feel a bit better. But since moving here, because we have so much sunshine and we are incredibly privileged where we live to have nice weather and to have beautiful nature, and because I'm generally just much happier, I crave things like treats a lot less. So yeah, treats are very much a personal thing. There is one big exception that I completely forgot about this month, is I am going on a short trip to visit some friends who live about 2 hours away, and I'm really excited to go and see them. They're living in a new city, and to be honest, we probably will eat out, or we probably will go and do some things, like we might go climbing together. That will definitely cost money unless they have like guest passes, but I don't want to rely on that. So that's just one exception. It's like a 4 or 5 days I'm gonna be spending with them, and I'm gonna budget for that. So I'm not just gonna go and spend however much money I want to spend and just throw caution to the wind. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna think about how much money I want to spend each day. And I personally don't find it awkward to say I'm personally on a budget at the moment, so I don't want to spend more than this, or I'd rather go to a restaurant that's cheaper, or I would rather we made a meal together. Why don't I make a meal for us as a thank you for letting me stay with you? I guess in terms of expenses, those are things I'm going to write down on my budget. So rent plus the extra health benefits I have to accommodate for. So health insurance, dental insurance, eye insurance, car insurance, my gym membership. But what I am going to do is I'm going to track all of my expenses and track every single thing that I buy. This is completely inspired by Christina. If you haven't seen her video on her No by January, I will link it down below, because she definitely inspired me to do this and made me think more about what I'm buying and how I can save money. And so I'm going to create a spreadsheet, and I'm going to go through absolutely everything and make sure every purchase I make, including what I'm saving, is accounted for on that sheet, and also anything that he purchases for both of us, because at the end of each month we go through all of our expenses, and if there's anything that he's bought then we split it and things like that. I guess we'll have to have a catch up maybe halfway through the month, see how the no buy is going, or maybe after my trip, or maybe just at the end of the month. We'll see. I would love to know if you're doing a no buy month, and if you are, what your rules are, what your exceptions are, why you're doing it, how you're going about doing it. To me, I thought that February was a good month to do it because it's the kind of month that I usually don't really go out much anyway, but I guess it's different now that I live here. But yeah, anyway, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for watching, and also to my patrons over on Patreon. Honestly, you have made this transition moving to the US so much easier, so I want to say a massive thank you to you. And if anyone else wants extra content, I make a video every other Wednesday, so that's an additional video, and then also we make updates every week, hopefully from now on. So yeah, check the link in the description if you're interested. But thank you so much for watching, and I will give you an update. If you have any questions about the no by February, please leave them down below and I will address them in the next video. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.